Welcome to SEC Football Live here on the 440 Sports Network, of course, and on that SEC podcast. We got some news for you guys coming up in just a second, so sit tight for that. He is SEC Mike. I am Braden Gall. We're going to have some fun today on the show. We've got a couple of pieces of news here on the front end, some coaching changes, as, of course, this is now a time of year where coaches just all of a sudden up and change. so we've got a bunch of coaching changes to get to. I think there's some interesting things taking place at Alabama, at Kentucky, and, of course, maybe at Missouri. So we'll get to that. What is going on to everyone in the comments? I do appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And we're going to play a game today. It's something that my good friend Stephen Lassen and I have done on our other show for a long, long time, many years. And I thought I'd tweak it a little bit because I thought, you know what? I'm tired of portal talk. I'm tired of NCAA investigations. I'm tired of coaching changes. Let's have fun looking ahead at 2024. And here's the game we're going to play today. We are going to put together our dream SEC road trips. Now, I wanted to put a bunch of rules on this and say, look, you can't, visit a team more than twice. You can only go to home stadium one time. And I said, you know what? Screw that. It's too complicated. Here's what you're going to do. You got to pick a game to go to in the SEC every week of the year. You have to see all 16 teams over 14 weeks. So that's one qualifier. You got to see all 16, which means you got to pick a Vandy game somewhere. You got to put them in there somewhere. And we will lay out our dream road trips coming up a little bit later on in the program. So update and some news here on the front end of the show for all you guys that have been listening. And I already see a lot of you guys that I recognize. Bo, I know you come over and hang out at 440 a lot as well. Liquid Flames, I know you've been over there. I know a lot of you folks have been over there, and I really appreciate you guys. Michael and I, we're gonna move over to, or I'm moving SEC Football Live over to 440 Sports. So if you want to continue to hang out with this particular live show, we're going to have some different voices and some different faces and some different formats for you, but come on over to 440 Sports. Give us a subscription. We do appreciate it. Bratton is so busy and has so many important things to do. He has an office with many leather-bound books, and it smells of rich mahogany. And we'll get back together maybe in the start of the football season or at SEC Media Days in Dallas. But we're going to move the show over to 440 Sports exclusively and have some new voices for you guys over there. So this will be our swan song, Mike, together here.
I can't wait for you and Cousin Shane over at 440. That's going to be quite the show.
Well, since you've deplatformed him and canceled him, I guess I'll have to put him on. I'll have to put him on my platform. So no, just again, there's so many of you great folks over here on that SEC podcast. So if you want to come on over to 440 Sports, we've got right now, for example, we have videos up for every single team ranked in the Athlon Sports early preseason top 25. We've got a deep dive into the NCAA investigation with Trey Wallace. I've got a long form about the future of the SEC with Paul Feinbaum. We're going to have great guests, and we're going to take a deep dive into sort of like every topic that comes up in the SEC, just like you guys do. And what I want, like, for example, Stephen Lassen and I did a long conversation about what this SEC Big Ten merger, this advisory group could mean. And I know this is your goal too, and my goal as well. The goal is to sort of like anything that could be related to SEC football, we want to spend time talking about it. So that's sort of the goal. So come on over, 440, and there you go. There you go. MIZ.
Yeah, I was very confused by all these rules. I did it with your initial rules.
It's hard to do. So.
I may have broken the rules a little, but I tried to go within the bounds of the rules here.
So we'll get to that in just a second. Our dream road trip, I guess, we'll just move right along, I guess. Okay, quickly some news here. Two big pieces of news. Ryan Grubb. Jake Mizzou says, "What the hell is 440 Sports?" That is the company that I run. It's got all kinds of content, but the website, the YouTube page is exclusively SEC football and some Tennessee Titans in there, mixed in there. But it is exclusively SEC football. Mike and I have both been in this business a long time, covering college football. But the SEC is the best. I'm an SEC grad, so come on over. We'll have tons of SEC content for you, and stay here with Mike as well. Like, just don't go anywhere. Just add us to your diet. That's all we ask. So. Ryan Grubb leaves after the 30-day portal window closes. He heads to Seattle to become an offensive coordinator. We have talked about this. This is a problem in college football. We are losing talented coaches too fast, too often, because you can make more money and do less work, frankly, in the SEC. T. Martin warned us about this a couple of years ago. He said, look, I want to be home at 5, 6 o'clock, see my wife and my kids and my family. And the portal rules and NIL and the NCAA and the investigations and all this chaos is pushing coaches out. Liam Cohen leaves Kentucky to go to Tampa Bay. Ryan Grubb is now no longer your offensive coordinator at Alabama. And I know I haven't seen the latest, Mike. I don't know if there's been more to this morning about potentially targeting Kirby Moore. But it's not a huge blow because Kalen DeBoer is such an elite offensive mind. But it's certainly Ryan Grubb and the offensive line coach. That's a big loss for Alabama at this stage of the season, for sure.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to promote Nick Sheridan to offensive coordinator. He's never been a play caller, so life in the SEC is not all it's cracked up to be, is it, old DeBoer here? I mean, one issue after another. This has got me losing. It's not like Ryan Grubb was Alabama, but it's got me feeling less optimistic about the Crimson Tide now. And I don't like the way they handled it. For anybody that missed it, apparently they waited to announce this till after the 30-day portal window, which I don't know. I don't even know why you have to do that, Braden, because who in the hell is staying at Alabama for Ryan Grubb, who's not worked but 2 weeks down there? That's nonsensical to me, but I guess that is life in the SEC. We got to look for each and every advantage we could possibly squeeze out of this thing, and that's what they did. So I guess more power to them, but I don't know. If I'm an Alabama player, if I'm like, say, Jalen Milroe, I'm sitting here saying, hell, I've known these guys for how many weeks, and you already lied to my, I don't know if he lied to his face, but he lied to the face of many boosters at Alabama. I mean, I'm kind of like, how can I trust these guys? That's how I'd be.
Well, he's not the offensive architect. So from a scheme standpoint, I'm not as worried about Alabama. If I'm Jalen Milroe, I'm still excited because Kalen DeBoer is the mastermind. Kalen DeBoer is the wizard. Kalen DeBoer is the leader, and Kalen DeBoer is here. So that one I don't have as much concern about. But look, if it's your favorite team, this is what you'd want. You'd want your coach, you want your coordinator to wait till after the 30-day window and then leave. Like, do I love that a guy took a job at one of the premier institutions in college football and then realized he had an opportunity in the NFL? I think that's, I don't know. You don't know what the conversations were like either between him and the players. I mean, it sounded like, from what I understand, on the front end of the hire, that it took him some convincing to come down there in the first place. And then I think he always knew there was a chance that, Seattle could call for him or some other team could call for him. So, again, is it the end of the universe here for Alabama? Of course not. Is it part of the game now where coaches are leaving to go to the NFL because it is less work and more money because the NCAA roster management is chaos? Yes. That is a thing you better get. The Boston College head coach just left to go become a coordinator. Chip Kelly is like getting out. I know he went to Ohio State, but like, it's less work to be an offensive coordinator than to be a head coach. Kane Womack, who's on the Alabama staff, left from being a head coach to be a coordinator. You can keep going with these guys. Like, it's going to be a problem in college football until we get the roster management crisis solved in the SEC and everywhere else in college football.
Right, but there's nothing wrong with what you just said. I think it's all accurate, but there's a difference between taking a job and then on we're recording, it's February 13th. February 9th, he says, I'm Ryan Grubb. I'm your new offensive coordinator. And this was at the Red Elephant Club, which is kind of the booster club. They're trying to get NIL donations. I mean,
well, but it's must-lie situation.
I just landed a job.
Well, what do you think, Josh? I hear you, man. But do you think Josh Heupel, before you take a job, it's must-lie situation no matter what? So, Hugh Freeze is at meetings at Liberty every second of the day doing the best job he can for Liberty before he takes the Auburn job. Like, that's like Nick Saban was interviewing guys the day before he decided to retire. Isn't that bullshit then? Like, I just think that's the way the industry works. I think it's unfortunate. I think this one's even more weird because he did it in such a short period of time. And we're talking about the Kentucky offensive coordinator job. Bush Hamden looks like he's going to be the guy as well. And Boise State fans, yes, Travis, are extremely pissed off. By the way, Boise State rushed for over 3,000 yards last year. I just want to point that out. They were one of 4 teams in the entire country that rushed for over 3,000 yards, and Bush Hamden made their offense significantly better from year 1 to year 2 last season. They were top 15 in college football in yards per play. So I think he fits. They were doing some super creative, fun stuff with the quarterback and the run game. I think he actually fits very well with Brock Vandegrift. So I think if that does get finalized, I think Pete Thamel reported that originally, so we can get into that too. I don't think it's as like, first of all, if you're a Bama fan, aren't you happy that he waited till after the portal was closed, just in case maybe one receiver or one guy didn't leave? I don't love that like for the players, but if I'm a fan of the team, I don't hate that. And then I don't know. I think every single coach lies all the time until they have the new job. Like you have to pretend like you don't have the job until you do have the job, right? Isn't that normal?
I mean, I just think it's different when they literally the moment he accepts, they're like, this was all constructed for this portal window. Like that. I don't know. That rubs me the wrong way. But I don't know.
So is it possible? I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and I don't disagree with your emotion and your response to it. But is it possible that somebody takes a job and thinks it's the best thing for their family and their situation, and then things change 30 days later, and they get a better job from somebody else? And I'm not saying that's not a terrible situation, but it's also possible that could happen. And I think it's easy. I think it's easy to make the case that being the offensive coordinator for Seattle is significantly better right now than being the offensive coordinator for any college team, because the college game is so fucked up from a roster management standpoint. That's my takeaway is more about like college football needs to fix its own backyard, and then folks won't be leaving as often. I feel like is more the takeaway for me.
And then maybe even a striking at the similar topic, but a little different. We saw Chip Kelly leave UCLA, and from what I understand, UCLA's NIL is in the toilet. And I just read an article from Edgar Thompson, I think it was, down there in Florida. He's been covering the Gators for decades.
Very good music fan, Edgar Thompson. Big time
really?
Music guy. Oh yeah.
And he basically, the thesis of his, and this is not just him speculating, he went out and spoke to Florida Collective people. They basically said, we don't got money to pay players. Yeah. And what do you know? UCLA, well, I mean, I don't follow UCLA, but the fact that Chip Kelly left to take an offensive coordinator job tells you basically all what he thinks about UCLA and the Big Ten. And even the most diehard Florida fans, hell, we got Michael in here in the comments, just eyeing the next coach, and he's not alone. I mean, it seems like Billy Napier may be dead man walking here. And in part, that's probably his NIL. I had Nick Knudsen on my show last week, Braden, and he said all these flips at the 11th hour, that was money related. Now, maybe not the case for everybody, but I mean, all this factors in, and I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I guess fans more than ever, I think, have a say in how well their program does. And I don't think it should be the fans that have to pay for all the players. I think that's ridiculous, but it's the system we have right now. And I think the fact that, if you don't believe in Billy Napier, you say, I'm not going to give him a damn dime. But I believe in Lane Kiffin. I'm going to give him more than I've ever given before. I think there's power in fandom right now.
There is, but not. I mean, 99.9% of us don't have the money to make a difference. Like, we just don't. I've talked to some people around the Florida program that'll tell you, like, it's the same small collection of boosters that generally write the big checks for everything at Florida, and they need more of them, and they don't have enough. They don't have enough of them, apparently, from what I understand. And UCLA has always had financial issues from a commitment standpoint. Now, it's a great job because you're going to be in the Big Ten and you can recruit California, which is very different than like Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, Northwestern, etc. You have a much better situation in recruiting, but they don't commit financially to the institution. They never have. That's always been an issue for UCLA. It's why USC's always been a better program. But when UCLA is good, you can win at a high level. The other thing is, real quickly on Chip Kelly, he left because, I mean, this guy was on the hot seat like 3 months ago. So Chip Kelly's situation is not just about NIL. Chip Kelly was about to get fired.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that.
That's where the Billy Napier comparison does make sense to me, is that if at the end of next year, Billy Napier's on the hot seat and they keep him, and he doesn't see NIL changing, and he decides to leave on his own, then you're exactly in the same situation as Chip Kelly.
But there's no way that Missouri and Ole Miss fans have more money than UCLA and Florida fans, is it?
UCLA does not value football. They don't. It's not about like Vanderbilt has more money than anybody, but they have a $4 billion endowment or whatever. Like they don't. It's not. It's about what you prioritize. And Florida simply, I would argue, Florida just doesn't have old enough money. like Tennessee and Auburn and Alabama have 100-year-old money, right? Like families of boosters that have passed down their ability to influence. Texas oil money is like generations old. I don't know if Florida, who kind of came to power in the early 80s and then like sort of really truly late 80s with Steve Spurrier, like
Spurrier babies.
They don't. Yeah, I just think it's a younger. I mean, all Miami, Florida State, they're all fairly new to the top of the food chain in college football, because 30 years is not as long as 100 years. The way Oklahoma and Texas and A&M and Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama, like these are old money programs. And again, I talked to people at Florida, and they're like, they just don't have as many people that can write the big fat checks, because the grassroots donation is not going to fix the problem of player talent. Your guy's giving a couple $100, or if I go donate $1,000, like that's not going to change your roster location in the sport. Like you need,
doesn't hurt.
You need the billions. You need the billion, capital B billionaire, capital M millionaires is what
we give Kiffin all this credit for how he handles the portal. Maybe we need to give him more credit for dangling this job, dangling that job, so that the money people do not only pay him, but pay the NIL collective.
There you go. I think that's ultimately what it is. So I think all of this leads to things like Ryan Grubb happening. That is what this leads to. It leads to, coaches, again, coordinators leaving head coaching jobs to do less things for more money in the NFL. You've got, again, Liam Cohen is an NFL guy, and he comes from an NFL background, and sure enough, he wants to go coach in the NFL. But when you put this entire story all together with Chip Kelly and all these other coaches, Jeff Hafley leaving Boston College, it's a major brain drain of talent in the college level. Now, Kentucky, Bush Hamden, we talked about it. I think this is an excellent hire for Kentucky if and when it gets finalized. I don't know about the Alabama situation. I think Sheridan, we'll have to find out. I would much rather Kalen DeBoer call plays in year one. That's what I would rather see if I'm an Alabama fan. But I think ultimately you could do a lot worse. Boise State people, by the way, Bush Hamden did a brilliant job with the coaching staff after fired their coach, Andy Avalos. They kept that team together, and Bush has done a pretty good job. And to pull an alumni away from Boise State, who's got all of his returning starters coming back, a star quarterback in Malachi Nelson, who's a former 5-star, went to USC. I think Kentucky, to lure him away is a nice win. Let's find out what he can do in this conference. I think that remains to be seen, but we'll see. I think it does fit Brock Vandegrift's skills very well, though.
Well, I'm looking at Boise 2 years ago, though. They ran for 2,800 yards.
Yep. But they were like a 50th ranked. They were 55th in the nation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They got significantly better last year, and again with the coach that they fired. They fired the head coach in the middle of all of that. So I think it's an interesting hire for Kentucky. I think it's interesting. I think it's a smart move. So okay, you want to get into our game here? We're going to play.
Yes,
and
sir.
You guys can certainly play along. Here were the rules that I sort of put in place for this. You got 14 weeks in the college football season, starting on August 31st, running through November 30th. You can go to any game you want to go to, any week you want to go to, but you have to see all 16 teams at least one time. Now, I wanted to put a bunch of other restrictions on this, but it made it hard. It made it harder. So I just said, look, you can go anywhere you want to go, but you got to see all 16. So that means you have to see Vanderbilt, you have to see Mississippi State, you got to see Arkansas, you got to see everybody, right? And so then beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Sometimes you may want to see a coach, you may want to see a player, you may want to see a matchup, you may want to see a storyline. There's no rhyme or reason. This is all beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So in your SEC 2024 dream road trip, Michael Braden, SEC Mike, where are you going in week number 1?
Yeah, well, mine may change slightly because again, I was going off these previous rules you had set, but I'm going week 1, Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt, just to get Vanderbilt, get them the hell off the list. And this is probably maybe the most winnable, high profile game they have. And I don't ever want to see Vanderbilt again after week 1. Can we move this to week 0? That would be even more ideal.
It's funny. I almost put that one on there too because it's a decent non-conference game. It's a decent ACC Power 5 opponent, and you can get it out of the way.
Exactly.
I'm going to College Station. Listen. LSU USC, cool. Okay, that's a cool game. Miami Florida's on the list as well as a big one, but I'm going Notre Dame at Texas A&M because it's a home game. And Mike Elko's making his debut. You got his former quarterback playing quarterback for Notre Dame and Riley Leonard. The storylines are juicy. This is an elite test for Texas A&M right out of the gate. If they were to pull an upset and win in Mike Elko's debut over what is probably a top 12 Notre Dame team, I think we start to lose our minds in College Station. Very fast.
And we may be running off that Notre Dame coach, I would think, if they can't beat Mike Elko, it's his first game ever. But yeah, I mean that's one that if not for these rules, that's probably where I'm going. You know what I mean? Because I got plenty of A&M on my list upcoming. Yeah. Miami at Florida is right there as well. That's a really good one. Those are the top two. I get it, Southern Cal, LSU, and Vegas, but I don't want to go to any of these damn NFL stadiums. That's awful.
Sven said the same thing. Georgia Clemson is a great game, but in Atlanta, no chance. I'm not going to a game at an NFL stadium when I can go to an SEC stadium. Like again, Miami, Florida was my second choice, but I want to see Elko versus his former quarterback. Yeah. I want to see. It's a great helmet game, right? Like the Golden Dome versus Texas A&M. It's a great helmet game, north south. It's going to be awesome. So that's where I'm headed in week number 1.
And if you want to get barked at, go down to Atlanta, Georgia, Clemson. They'll bark at you for 3 hours.
Well, it's funny. I got so much Georgia on my schedule, but like none of it's in Athens.
Yeah, I found one.
I did too. I did at the end of the year, but like all of Georgia's most interesting football games, almost all of them are on the road or neutral site this year. So it's gonna be super fascinating. All right, week number 2, September 7th. Where are you going?
Again, I'm trying to get teams off the list. We don't have a ton of great matchups here. South Carolina at Kentucky, Sunglass Bowl. There's some hatred here, and I really think that the loser of this game. I mean, this is almost like a must-win in week 2 of the season because the loser, I think, is in for a really rough year. This could be a big game for Shane Beamer and Mark Stoops.
You want to get you want to Airbnb a horse farm together? I've done that before in Lexington. I've Airbnb'd a horse farm.
Really?
I'm going South Carolina, Kentucky. I'll be there. Shane Beamer versus Mark Stoops. Sign me up. I think it is an incredibly important game for both teams and their bowl chances at the end of the year. I think we're going to look back and we're going to go, no, we're not going to Bowling Green. We're going to Lexington, Chris. different place in Kentucky. No, I think it's, to your point, I think it's way more important than people realize. And I think the Arkansas-Oklahoma State game is utterly fascinating. I think that's a really interesting game. Texas, Michigan, of course, is amazing. Houston and Oklahoma, former conference rivals. Cal and Auburn's fun. You know, Mississippi State at Arizona State's fun. But give me South Carolina, Kentucky. I want to knock those two off my list, and give me a good coach rivalry with great sound bites, sound clips, and some steaks. Right? Drink some brown water. You know, we'll get a 2-bedroom. You know, I'm not going to make you sleep on the couch.
I've also kind of offended these first couple of weeks. There's just not a lot of great matchups to pick from in the SEC.
Texas, Michigan is insane.
I don't care about Big Ten. I'm talking SEC.
Okay, right, but there's not. You know, you have to play non-conference games.
I want all SEC all the time. Like that COVID year was glorious in that aspect.
We're getting closer to that, by the way. When the non-conference games come on. Okay, so we're in the same place in week number 2. Week number 3, September 14th. Where are you going?
This was another tough one for me, but I'm going Texas A&M at Florida in the swamp. I think it's going to be a hell of a matchup here. Again, maybe A&M's got a real chance to get some momentum. So does Florida. This is one that they desperately need because this is one of their more – I don't know how winnable this game even is for Florida, but it's one of the more winnable ones in the SEC for the Gators. Playing at home, hot and muggy. Of course, the Aggies are used to hot and muggy, but it's a different level down there in the swamp. So give me Texas A&M at Florida.
One of the things when you study Florida's schedule, and we've talked a lot about it on the show, but Florida gets a lot of its swing games at home in the Swamp. Later on in the year, it's LSU, it's Ole Miss, it's Kentucky in the middle of the season. Like, they are going to host Texas A&M in week 3, and that is in Miami in week 1. If they can win some of those swing games, that will completely change the trajectory of the program. If they lose a bunch of those swing games, especially at home, and the defense looks terrible, it is going to be the end of Billy Napier's coaching career. So I am with you. I am in Gainesville as well. We're just going to hop on a flight from Lexington and head on down to Gainesville and maybe get my booster shot on the way. Bama at Wisconsin, Georgia against Kentucky, Tulane, Oklahoma is very interesting. LSU against South Carolina. That's another good one there. Ole Miss at Wake Forest. Got to win that one. Boston College at Missouri. Missouri's got to win that one. But Georgia, Kentucky is intriguing. But look at Kentucky's schedule. You lose to South Carolina in week 2, and then you lose to Georgia, and you start 1-2 with a new quarterback and a new coordinator. Fans are not going to feel very happy about that.
Nope. All right, how about the following? Now we're ramping up, right? This is where things get
Texas
interesting.
A&M Florida is awesome. That was like one of the best games of the 2020 season.
That's true. And what was that? So that would have been Mullen. They played.
That was Kellen Moore, Kyle Trask. That was a great game.
Was it last year or 2 years ago they played too? And I'm trying to think. I think Florida won it, didn't they?
I think so.
Anthony Richardson. That was a big time game.
Oh yeah. They play weird games. It's a weird rivalry that like has been created with the new SEC, but it's two major power programs. So of course expect greatness. So
well, speaking of that, this is off the wall, but what SEC phenom made his debut in that game?
Which year?
If I tell you, it'll give it away. But it was Florida A&M, and a phenom was born.
2020. Talking about Kyle Pitts?
No, Johnny Manziel. That was his first.
Oh, you're talking about
SEC
back
game.
in 2012, back in 2011 or whatever. Yeah, 2012. Yeah, no, you're right. Go watch the documentary, right?
Yep. He came out just
like
basically first half. They said we tried to make him run an offense. He couldn't do it. They said second half, just do whatever the hell you want, and he went out there and damn near won the game.
Cliff Kingsbury's like, come on, man, you can't be drinking on the practice field. Kingsbury's just like, come on, Johnny, come on, dog. All right, I have a feeling I'm going to be with you 3 weeks in a row here on this one. I have a feeling in week 4, September 21st, I have a feeling you and I are going to be in the same place.
Oh, yeah, Tennessee at Oklahoma. Josh Heupel reunion, Nico, Jackson Arnold. First taste of Norman, Oklahoma. I mean, this is the game right here.
You know, can you sing the rest of it?
I don't know. I just know that part.
Sing the rest of it. Where the wind comes sweeping. Boomer suit. One of my favorite thing about Oklahoma, welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma, is that your entire fight song is just 2 words over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's just Boomer Sooner, Boomer Sooner. That's all it is. I'm Tennessee, Oklahoma. There's a complicated relationship there between Josh Heupel and his alma mater at Kentucky, at Oklahoma. And obviously not an accident that these two teams are playing in Oklahoma's very first ever SEC game, that it's in Norman, that it is against Josh Heupel in Tennessee. It is obviously not a coincidence. And 2 elite 5-star quarterbacks that people have insane expectations for. Here's the deal. I think Tennessee's the better football team right now on paper.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to, and people get mad when I say this, it's just the truth, but I don't know how to evaluate Texas and Oklahoma because of that weak-ass junior conference league they were in. So, this year is going to tell us a lot about both of those teams, and seemingly Texas, obviously very, very bold about what they can do in the SEC. We'll see.
Did Texas A&M and Missouri accomplish anything in the first couple of years when they joined the SEC from that quote-unquote junior conference?
I think the league's even better now.
You mean? Oh, that's right. Johnny won a Heisman, set all kinds of SEC records, and Missouri won the division twice. Okay, all right.
And that was with Georgia and Tennessee and Florida were all down.
I didn't ask for any of that context. I'm just saying. I just asked for facts. I think your hatred and condescension towards other conferences is, look, we're the best. We don't have to act like we're the best. You know what I mean? Like, we've been to the party so many times. Can you just act like you've been there before? You know? Like,
no.
Just act like you've been there before. You're like a Tennessee baseball fan showing up in Omaha. Like, what the fuck is this place?
Exactly. That's the right attitude to have.
What's going on out here? Y'all play baseball?
Yeah, that's how I feel about them. That's how I feel about the Big 12.
Texas and Oklahoma are going to be very good. So,
yeah. Okay. We'll find out. We'll find out come September 15th, I think it is.
I mean, look, the SEC is ripe for the picking with the decaying dynasty. I mean, Alabama is meaningless now. So obviously the SEC, Tennessee, Texas, and Oklahoma come right in, destroy.
Yep. I nailed that one. All right, how about
Perfect Cracker says Big 12 was a different animal when A&M and Missouri took off, and so was the SEC. Look, I don't want to read off the coaches in the East that Gary Pinkel and Missouri were able to beat in the East. You don't want to hear the list.
Was it Dooley? Was he part of it?
James Franklin might have been the best coach in the East at the time.
God.
Well, it would have been Mark Richt at the time, but I think it was Joker Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Jim McElwain. I think it was Derek the Doolander. I think the Doolander was there in Knoxville.
Spurrier was there though, at least, right?
At South Carolina in 2012. I think certainly in 2011. Yeah, he probably was still there for a couple more years.
Yeah,
and that was Connor Shaw. That was like one of the better one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the history of the SEC. Connor Shaw.
Yeah,
the follically challenged Connor Shaw. Bald at 21 years old. But one of my favorite players, truly one of my favorite players ever. And if you've not watched Connor Shaw, go watch some Connor Shaw clips. He's awesome. Yes, Liquid, we do not talk about Jim McElwain. All right, so we are in Tennessee and Oklahoma territory in week number 4. I think it is absolutely must-see television. In fact, there's an extremely huge music festival in Louisville that weekend. And there's a bunch of people from Nashville, a bunch of buddies of mine are telling me, like, we're all going up, and there's like 3 of us that are like, I don't know if we want to go to this music festival. We need to get back to make sure we got Tennessee and Oklahoma on the TV screen. Like, I'm not sitting out there in the hot sun watching music while Tennessee and Oklahoma are playing. That's not happening. So,
and then the following week, I assume we're at the same location again.
Yeah, this one, there's week 5,
Georgia at Alabama.
It doesn't get any better than that. There's a lot of Bama. This is not their first major test. They'll play Wisconsin, right, in week 3. Mm-hmm. They should ease into that with Western Kentucky and South Florida. But this is the real first challenge with the best team and the best program and the best coach in America coming to Tuscaloosa. And Alabama has traditionally won all those games. So this will be the first time where Alabama doesn't understand what's happening.
And I'm currently on the ESPN schedule site where they link you to go buy tickets. You could get a ticket as low as $393 for Georgia at Alabama. And then same weekend, South Alabama at LSU, you can get a ticket for as low as $9.
$9. And what do those 2 games have in common? Kane Womack.
Yeah, that's true.
Kane Womack. Kentucky at Ole Miss is a very interesting football game that weekend. Arkansas at Texas A&M in Jerry World is always just a complete and total chaos, total shit show. I love when those 2 teams get together. You always just see something completely absurd when those 2 play. Even if like one team's way better than the other, there's always something crazy. But the other one is Oklahoma at Auburn. If you want to talk about beautiful setting, beautiful place to go to a game, great fans, loud atmosphere, Oklahoma coming off hosting Tennessee the week before, 2 historic brands that compete for like Oklahoma and Auburn is also as good as it gets that same week. But yes, I am going to be in Tuscaloosa up the road. Maybe we could do the double dip. Can you like get in the car and head down and do both of those games? That's a huge day in the state of Alabama.
I've seen Sankey do it, but I think that's out of our budget.
We'll see. It's only a couple hours, man. It's like a 3.5 hour drive. It's good. Week number 6, October 5th. There's some good ones here. Where are you headed to?
Yeah, I think Cousin Shane and I are actually planning on attending this one, so I had to put it on the list. Tennessee at Arkansas. It's been a fun little series. They don't play as often as they should. They will now, moving forward in the new look SEC. So Tennessee at Arkansas, I think that'd be a hell of a time.
First of all, you got Clint Sterner will be there, I'm assuming.
Yep, exactly.
No, I am going. I'm going Missouri at Texas A&M. 2 former Big 12 teams, of course, decades ago. I just think Missouri has a chance to prove itself in a really big way this year, because I think they are, while their schedule sets up, there's a few really tricky road games. Obviously, the Bama game is huge, but like at Texas A&M is one of those games that if you want to be considered a playoff team and you want to replicate what you did last year, which I don't know if Missouri can do, but if they want to get back to 10 wins with Brady Cook, with Luther Burden, and with an excellent offense and replacing some, like this is probably one of the most difficult games on the schedule for Missouri. And if Texas A&M, you want to probably get them early in the year. So this might be where Texas A&M is still learning how to finding its footing and become the Mike Elko coach team. This is huge for both programs. To me, this game almost defines Missouri's season, because if they're going to be really good, they have to win games like Auburn at home. They have to win games, South Carolina on the road or at Mississippi State. Like they have to win those games if they're going to be considered a playoff team. So you have to give them those wins. It's the tough ones. It's Texas A&M, it's Bama, it's Oklahoma, that they've got to at least win one of those three. And at Texas A&M is a big one for me. Auburn, Georgia is a great game, of course, historic, epic rivalry. Ole Miss, South Carolina is crazy. And I'm with you on Tennessee and Arkansas. Huge game for Arkansas. But I'm going Missouri A&M. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's going to be a hell of a matchup. Like you said, fans may not realize, but that's going to be one of the tougher tests Missouri faces all season. Aside, they play Alabama as well. But, if they win this one, it'd be foolish to say they punch their ticket to the playoff, but they take a huge step forward to getting there if they can win at A&M, which, hell, they may be favored to, but a lot of teams are favored to go down and, at Kyle Field and get a win and come away
No,
with a loss.
It's all the underdogs that go down there and win.
It's Texas A&M?
It's Appalachian State. It's Miami. It's all the underdogs that go in there and win. I'm kidding.
No, they beat Miami there.
I know. Sandman says Auburn is not a blue blood. That is not true. That's just not true. They've played in 2 national championship games in the last 15 years. Sorry. It's just not true. Every coach they've ever had is competing for a national championship. How that tenure ends, we won't talk about that. But every coach that goes there competes for a national championship.
Not Harsin.
Okay, good point.
Maybe he just needed 3 years.
Even Terry Bowden had an undefeated season and was competing for a national championship. You know what I mean? Like
even Chiswick won one.
Chiswick won a national title. You got Gus Malzahn in the national championship game. I'm just saying, like, you can win at Auburn pretty high. It's definitely a blue blood. There's no question about that. Okay, where else are we headed here? Week number 6. No, that was week 6. Week 7. This is one of the best weeks of football in October 12th. Make sure you got nothing to do on October 12th, week number 7.
Yeah, I almost said Ole Miss LSU because I think that's going to be just a great game. And obviously they had a fantastic game last year that kind of kick-started Ole Miss to their 11-win campaign. But I think you have to go Texas, Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout here. First time as SEC opponents going head-to-head here in Dallas. So this is another one where Shane and I we plan on attending down here for this one. There's probably going to be so many people trying to get credentialed. I can guarantee you we probably will not be among them, but we're going to be there drinking beers and watching the game.
It's where I learned how to cuss. I went to the Stone. For those that know, and there's a bunch of you Texas fans in the comments here. For those of you who know the Stony Stand, of course. And for you SEC fans, you need to look it up. But my dad took me, we were living in Austin. We went up to the Stony Stand and we watched on a 4th down, Texas beat Oklahoma in basically the last, I think it was like the 3rd to last play of the game or something like that. On a 4th down, big old defensive tackle gets a stop. And I learned how to cuss. Like my dad and I, man, like I look up at my father. We weren't like Texas fans or anything, but we were living in Austin. And so we went up to watch the game, and you get the fried butter and the fried Oreos and the fried Twinkies and the fried everything. And, it's the biggest fair in the country. And you go to this stadium that's not exactly like in good shape, but it's got so much charm. It really reminds me of going to Old Rosenblatt Stadium. And in Old Rosenblatt Stadium, while it wasn't particularly a nice building, it had so much charm and history, and you could just feel it. And you go into the Cotton Bowl, and you can just feel it. And one half the stadium is maroon, one half the stadium is orange, and it's just like I learned. Like they said things to each other, and I looked at my dad. I was like, "Am I allowed to say that?" And he's like, "No." You're not allowed to
What
say
is this Rosenblatt? Where's that? I don't know.
Johnny Rosenblatt Stadium? That's where the College World Series was played for like 50 years in Omaha.
Oh, baseball. Gotcha. Okay. That's why I didn't get the reference there.
Yeah, Rosenblatt. And you didn't know the name Rosenblatt? Come on. Hey, Rosenblatt. Yep, Sam, man. Stony Clark, man. Stony Clark stand. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It's where I truly fell in love with college football. So it's why I'm not going to that game, because I've been to it, and I don't want to taint my memory of how great that game was, although it is exquisite every year. If a 6-win Charlie Strong team can beat like an almost undefeated Big 12 champion Bob Stoops team, then weird things happen in that game. I'm going to Baton Rouge, though, because I think this is maybe the most important game of the Ole Miss schedule. They've got a couple other big ones that I'm going to as well, but Ole Miss at LSU on the road, just like Missouri at A&M, if you want to be taken seriously and you want to go to a college football playoff, Ole Miss has to go on the road and beat LSU. Sorry, Crimson and Cream, my bad.
Braden, how fucking crazy are we college football fans? Look at this Jeff guy. He's great. He's a Mizzou fan. Texas, by the way, did not invent the corn dog. It's a Missouri. Like that's where we're at in the offseason. You know,
where was the patent filed? Who filed the patent with the U.S. Patent Office for the corn dog? Was it filed in Missouri? Was it filed in Texas? I don't know.
That's perfect right there. No, yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. Ole Miss, LSU, I think that's going to be a hell of a game right there.
Yeah, it's Brian Kelly, LSU. You look at the returning starters and the roster talent. LSU is still amongst the best in the conference and in the country. Nussmeier has to be good, but ultimately this is about Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going for it and has to prove that it is a championship contender, like you keep saying that they can be. And if they're preseason top 6 or 7, you can't go on the road and lose your biggest game of the year. You have to go beat LSU. So I'm in Baton Rouge that weekend in week number 7. All right, week 8. This is a no-brainer right here for me.
Real quick though, I know everybody's trashing on the Gators, and I get it. The schedule's, everybody talks about the schedule. It's the last 7-8 games that are. I think it's 7 games that is just a damn baton death match. But the first 5 are all winnable. Florida could be undefeated going into Tennessee. So. Don't overlook that as a potential in elite game as well.
No, Florida at Tennessee, huge game for both sides, right? Big game for Josh Heupel, and of course, to your point, with the nasty second half of the schedule for Florida, they've got to bank wins. That's the one I think they lose. I think there's a chance they beat A&M at home and they beat Miami at home, and that Florida is like 6-1. Put up Liquid's comment here. In 1927, Stanley Jenkins from Buffalo, New York, filed a patent for an apparatus to prepare what can only be described as a corn dog. I have no idea if any of that is true.
Way to go, Stanley.
But excellent job, Mr. Jenkins.
All right, week 8, again, another obvious one here, at least in my opinion. Georgia at Texas, game of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe a national championship preview or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be beautiful when these teams meet as SEC opponents.
Oh. Little patch, the little burnt orange patch on the shoulder pad for Texas with the Longhorn on the other side. It's going to be spectacular. It's going to be spectacular. Uh-oh, in Springfield, Missouri, the corn dog wasn't invented.
I guess they don't believe in patents down there.
I just going to say, there's a chance Liquid made all of that up. That's what I'm saying. No, it's Georgia, Texas is the biggest game of the year. Bama at Tennessee could be a spectacular game. Kentucky at Florida has turned into a huge game for Billy Napier. You can't keep losing to the Kentucky Wildcats and be the head coach at Florida. Auburn at Missouri is fantastic. LSU at Arkansas, great rivalry game. Texas A&M at Mississippi State. South Carolina at Oklahoma. Sure, Ball State and Vanderbilt. But this is one of the best weekends of the entire year. And Georgia-Texas might be the best game of the entire season. And to your point, this is what I want to say to folks who are like, oh, the expanded playoff's going to ruin the regular season. This could be a game that we absolutely see in the playoff or in the national championship game. Why would that take away from what's going to happen on the field in week 8? Why would that game be any less awesome? Because they might play again later in the year as two of the best teams. There's so much at stake. An SEC championship, seeding, a first-round bye. Like, you can name what's still at stake here. SEC glory for Texas at home hosting Georgia, number 1 probably in the nation at the time. Just because the playoff happens and they might play again doesn't take away at all from what's going to happen in that game.
Well, and who knows, Braden? I mean, I know we're all optimistic in the offseason, but there's only so many playoff spots, and this could be a game that knocks one of these teams out. I mean, it's not. Is it unfathomable to say Georgia loses at Alabama? No. I mean, that could happen, right? No. And then let's say they lose at Texas, and then all of a sudden they don't make the SEC championship because of those two. You know, I mean, I'm just saying like this. No. You're right. It could be a game that determines whether they even make the playoff or not.
I will say it is probably the most important game of the season. I agree with Chris here. There's one other game that, in all fairness, there is one other game that will be a better environment, better atmosphere, better place to be. It is the best game in the entire country this year, and we'll get to that later on. I love the debate about deep frying that's taking place in the comments right now. just want to say that's fantastic. So good stuff there from all you guys. Okay, so where are we headed to? We're headed to week number 9. This one I really love LSU A&M. I love Missouri at Bama. I love Oklahoma in the Grove at Ole Miss. That's delicious. Auburn, Kentucky is great as well. But I had to get Arkansas and Mississippi State on the schedule here. So I'm going to some cowbells. I'm going to Stark Vegas. Give me the Hogs at Mississippi State because I needed to get them onto the schedule, both those two teams.
I went with Auburn at Kentucky because I haven't gotten Auburn yet. But I think that'll be a fun game, one that we didn't get in the old format of the SEC, one that should be played a lot more often.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, not a terribly long distance, so I got to imagine fans will travel well to go check out the Bluegrass. So give me Auburn at Kentucky.
It's a great game. Great uniform game, too, by the way. I like the matchups there. It should be very good defensively, both teams this year. That's a really good one. So I went with Arkansas.
I do think the better game is Missouri at Alabama. That's kind of the one I have circled that I would.
I'm waffling on Missouri. I know it's super early in the process of us putting our magazine together at Athlon, but I'm starting to like waffle on Missouri a little bit. So
yeah,
I don't know how I feel.
I keep hearing that from people, but I'm happy to be right about. I listen to Cousin Shane when it comes to Missouri talk.
Well, there's many of us that were correct about Missouri last year. I'm not saying exactly who, but
did you have them winning 10 games?
No, but I had him finishing third or fourth.
Oh, okay.
Pete. This is it right here. Pete, come on, Mike. You cover the best college baseball conference, and you don't know what Rosenblatt Stadium is?
I couldn't name one SEC baseball player.
Oh, I can't either. But well, you mean like in the past? I can. Pete Alonso is just cranking dingers for my New York Mets, man.
I know like Todd Helton.
I've been 3 times.
Rafael Palmeiro.
Oh, stop! That's all. Those are.
that's probably it.
You're like Will Clark and Rafael Palmeiro that played on the same Mississippi State team back.
And I only know because they made a documentary. I saw commercials for it.
I've been to 3 College World Series. One in Rosenblatt in 07 when Oregon State won, and then I've gone again and covered it a couple of different times for Sirius XM when I was working for them. And it is such a great celebration. It's like an Americana event. It is so fantastic. It's great. Mississippi State, it's always better when LSU's there, but Mississippi State fans, you guys are spectacular. Like, Ole Miss is really good. Tennessee is wild and crazy. Vanderbilt's like the buttoned up James Bond version of SEC baseball. Florida's always crazy. Like, what's cool about the event is you can go out there and just like drink beer with the coaches. Like, I'll just be walking through the hotel and I'm like, oh, there's Sully from Florida. We're just going to have a beer and talk about baseball. And baseball coaches will talk about all their stuff the way SEC football coaches will not. SEC football coaches will not. They'll be like, wait, who do you think's our backup quarterback? I'm not fucking telling you a goddamn thing.
Here's how you could maybe talk me into it. Will the SEC baseball coaches talk about football if I ask them the questions?
Probably. They'll probably give you more insight than the football coaches will. But like, it's funny. Like, I'll ask a coach about something, and I'll just be like, why are you batting? Why didn't you play the first baseman tonight? And he'll be like, well, because he doesn't hit left-handed pitching very well. he just says the thing out loud. It's awesome. Yeah. Schlossnagel. That's right. I was there when he was at TCU, I believe. I covered the series when they had that guy who was like, what's the guy's name for TCU that was like 6'8", like 300 pounds, and he could hit the ball a quarter mile. And he played for Schloss, I think, when he was at TCU, I believe I'm not mistaken on that. Anyway, Coach lost. There you go. That's right. Anyway, back to our football discussion on a football show about college football. I'm at Arkansas, Mississippi State, week 9, October 26th. November 2nd, week number 10. I'll go first here and get it out of the way. Vanderbilt at Auburn. I love
What?
I had to get Vanderbilt on the schedule somehow. And I had to get Auburn on the schedule. And
Ooh.
I love going to the Plains. It is one of my favorite places in America to watch college football game. And so if I'm going to watch Vanderbilt, I might as well really, really love going to eat at Acre and, the Hound and going to eat at all my favorite places. I absolutely love Auburn as a place to go visit and watch games. It's great. It's great. Being a Vol fan, Mike wouldn't know the significance of Rosenblatt.
See, I don't even get that. Is that a burn or something?
Well, yeah, so the last time when I was in college, they went to the College World Series with Luke Hochaver, J.P. Arancibia, Julio Bourbon. Tennessee went in 05. They had the number 1 overall pick in the draft. They have not been relevant since then. And then Rosenblatt was destroyed, and they built a new ballpark. But they've been back, man. They've been back with Vitello. They've been back now with Vitello a couple times. So it's you can't hate on it too much. Okay, where are we going? I'm going to Vanderbilt Auburn. I'm assuming you're not coming with me.
No, and I think Florida Georgia is an obvious one. I think I've used up all my Georgia, but I don't even know how competitive that game is going to be. I would pick that one for the atmosphere, but I'm going Ole Miss at Arkansas. One of the more underrated SEC games. Those fans, they know all about it, but I don't know if the rest of them really paid attention. But this is one of the best series that I don't know if it'll remain on the annual schedule, but it has for years. Lane Kiffin, Sam Pittman, some classics there. So give me Ole Miss at Arkansas.
Fayetteville is one of the more underrated places in all of college football nationally. We'll see how good. The problem is how good is the football team at that point of the season. We just don't know with Arkansas. But you're right. Great rivalry, great fans, great stadium. Attendance at that place. It's a much bigger stadium than people realize, I think, if you haven't been there. You're talking I think 77,000, capacity. Next week, week 11, November 9th, there's only one place to go here.
Is it Alabama at LSU?
That's where I'm going.
Yeah. I think you could make the case depending on if Ole Miss lives up to the hype. Georgia at Ole Miss could be certainly one to watch. How good is Florida at Texas? That could be a fun game too. Mm-hmm. But I can't wait for Oklahoma, Missouri. I mean, I didn't realize the hatred there, but that, aside from Texas, this may be Oklahoma's best rival in the SEC now.
There's no Oklahoma fans will tell you there is no rivalry. Oklahoma will say this is not a rivalry, although Eli Drinkowitz is doing his best to make it a rivalry.
He's trying to do that with literally everybody, though.
They've played 93 times between those two teams. They've played 93 times, but Oklahoma always sort of brushed them off. Mm-hmm. They were just sort of a thing that existed. Now they beat the best Missouri team that Pinkel had was that 07 team that was close to the national championship game. They lost in the Big 12 title game to Oklahoma. But that is a great week of action. I just thought you couldn't avoid Kalen DeBoer against Brian Kelly. It's a new era of Bama LSU. And Georgia Ole Miss could be great. I agree. Maybe Ole Miss is so good that they could hang in that game. Missouri could be good enough to hang. Those are two teams that could be like top 15 type matchups. Florida, Texas is really, really good. That's a lot to ask Florida to go on the road and play in that game. I just think it's Bama LSU. So week 11, November 9th. It's just too much tradition and history there, especially with new names and new coaches on one half. And Brian Kelly already 1-1 with a win over Bama, which is more than he could do when he was at Notre Dame the whole time. So week 12, November 16th. Are we going to the same place here?
Well, again, so here's where I started to cheat because your rules, I just couldn't work around them. But
that's why I changed the rules.
I think Tennessee at Georgia, that's probably the one for me. I also think Texas at Arkansas, that is another one that I'm very, very interested in seeing. But if I had to stay to the rules, Missouri at South Carolina, that is a nice little game too, even though South Carolina can't beat Missouri. So if I'm sticking to the rules, it's Missouri, South Carolina, but my heart will really be in Athens because I want to go to Tennessee at Georgia.
Texas, Arkansas, fantastic old school rivalry. They've seen some recent matchups, of course, rekindling that game, but tons of history there and tradition. I think the winner should get Texarkana, like the city. I think they should play, and then like the city changes possession. Like whoever wins the game Texarkana becomes a part of that state. I'm in Athens because I wanted to go to Athens for a game, and I think the best game in Athens this year is going to be Tennessee, Georgia. I still think Georgia dominates the game. LSU, Florida's that weekend as well. This is where Florida has to sort of pull an upset somewhere late in the year to keep Billy Napier's job, and he's got to win a game like this one. If LSU's sort of a like a 7-2 team or a 6-2 team at that point, like that's a winnable game for Florida. They've got to pull an upset late in the year. So week 13, November 23rd, I'm going to the Swamp because I want to watch Lane Kiffin go on the road to Florida. There's lots of other great games. There's really great football games this week. But for some reason, there's something about Lane Kiffin and Billy Napier, Ole Miss and Florida. It's like, I don't want to call like I feel like it could get a little trashy.
Kiffin's,
you know what I mean?
Kiffin scouting his next job. I think Ole Miss at Florida, that's a game I also picked. But I really would like to go to Alabama at Oklahoma as well. I think I've used up my Oklahoma and Alabama, but that's like a 1A, 1B type situation for me on this weekend.
It's a great week, man. There's really, really good games. Bama, Oklahoma, as you mentioned. Texas A&M, Auburn is great. Kentucky, Texas, well, maybe not competitive. Talk about great uniform matchup. Kentucky and Texas, the blue and the burnt orange, that looks great on a TV screen. Missouri at Mississippi State, and there's a bunch of other. This is also a bunch of other. You got UTEP, Louisiana Tech, UMass, and Wofford on the schedule as well. Where'd you say you were going?
I'm going with Ole Miss at Florida.
Ole Miss, Florida. Okay, you're with me down there. And ultimately, in Week 14, November 30th, this is not the most important game in the standings. It may not, although it could affect who makes the SEC championship game. It might impact a team maybe getting into the playoff. But as someone who's been to 3 of these games in my life, there will be nothing close to like Georgia, Texas is great. Ole Miss, LSU is great. Bama, LSU is great. Bama, Georgia is great. Texas, Oklahoma is great. Miami, Florida is filled with hatred. You got Tennessee, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Tennessee, Oklahoma. There's so much great football in the new schedule. There is not a single one that will feel like you are inside a nuclear bomb, like Texas,
Georgia,
and Texas A&M.
Georgia Tech.
Yes, clean old-fashioned hate. Texas A&M is going to feel like a different. It is just like it is going to be so different than every other game of the year. It may not mean anything in terms of the standings. It may not, but man, this is 12 years of pent-up frustration baked on top of 100 years of hatred. Again, I don't know if you know this, but when you go to middle school in Austin, Texas, you don't learn your mama so fat jokes. You don't. Sorry, Bo, I love you. But you learn how to confuse an Aggie jokes. Aggies are so stupid. Like that's the jokes you learn. Like you don't learn, hey, your mama's so fat jokes. It's how to confuse an Aggie. Those are the jokes that you learn when you're in middle school in Austin, Texas. So Texas A&M, baby.
That's the obvious one, but I cheated a little bit because we know the Egg Bowl, they'll move it to Thursday like they always do.
Oh, you're going to both of them?
So I'll go to the Egg Bowl that week too. That'll give me plenty of time to get down there.
Thursday. It's been on Thursday the last couple of years.
Yeah, so it will be again. Now, what day will this what if they move both of them? That's my only issue. Because haven't they done that before? Didn't Texas A&M, didn't they used to play on
Friday? It used to be Fridays.
Friday, yeah. I mean, that'd be even better. Then I can hit 3 games this weekend.
I think one of them I went to. I'll have to go back and check the score, but I want to say it was like 59-7. And I watched Priest Holmes and Ricky Williams in the same backfield. And I want to say they beat Texas A&M like 59-10 or something like that. When I was like, I don't know, 13 or something like that, like mid 90s. But it is just the healthy amount of respect. If you are a neutral observer that you should have for both teams and the amount of hatred that they have for each other, it rivals everything in the SEC. It absolutely rivals everything that happens in the SEC. It is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's Texas Oklahoma is great. It's not as good as Texas A&M. It's just not. And the fact that A&M has gone and like gained this superiority by being in the SEC, like mentally, even though all they did was win a Heisman Trophy. A&M went and gained all this like mental superiority over Texas and on the recruiting trail, frankly, over the last 12 years. But like Texas is back now, quote unquote, competing at a highest level.
Got your ass right back.
I'm not a Texas fan. I don't know. I don't know.
Tell us about the corn dogs.
So Sandman, you think Red River's better than Texas A&M? Okay, all right. That's fine. That's fine. It's more meaningful in terms of the standings, championships, competing. That's not a knock on A&M. But I found I don't know. I found the like middle school kid like yelling at each other thing to be more filled with hatred with A&M. But maybe that's just my 3 years that I was there. So
were both teams good at that time, I wonder?
No, they weren't. They weren't. Texas and Oklahoma weren't that great in the mid 90s either. They weren't. Although John Makovic had a pretty decent team, I think in '96, the first year of the Big Ten, they went up there and upset Nebraska in the Big 12 championship game. So, Texas and A&M fighting is likely to cripple kids fighting. Good night. All right, that is the dream. That is the dream road trip. If you'd like to submit yours, I'd love to see y'all's lists. I'd love to see it. So you got to see all 16 teams in the league. So you got to see Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. They're great places to go to games. You got to see Auburn. It's a great place to go to a game. If you want to shoot me at Braden Gall on Twitter, you can get to me at 440 Sports as well. So if you want to come on over, sign up for a subscription there. Mike and I are going to take a little break here. We'll probably get back together sometime during the season and kind of reconvene. But SEC Football Live, everywhere you get your podcasts, and, of course, over on the 440 Sports YouTube page. So 440 Sports, that's all you got to do. And we're going to have tons of SEC content still over there for you. The show's going to kind of evolve and change and have some new voices and stuff. But, Mike, always a pleasure to work with you, dude. I've enjoyed your work for a long time. So I'm assuming this is not the last time we hang out together. But for all of you who've hung out with us all season on this Tuesday time slot, again, jump on over. We'll have some information for you over there on the 440 Sports YouTube page. So come hang out with us, man. We do appreciate it. Mike, it's always a pleasure, dude. Thank you for hanging out for the football season. It's been great.
Hell yeah, brother. Till next time, man.
All right, boys. Thank you for listening and for watching and subscribing. Have a great week. We will, if you come on over to 440 Sports, talk to you next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.